Dr. Lopez, I welcome you to the WIOA Summit and thank you for joining us this morning and look forward to hearing you and Kathleen's presentation. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for all of you that have worked to help organize the WIOA Summit. Very much appreciate it. We are here to talk about really a case model of utilizing talent pipeline management strategies that were authored by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and how those strategies worked within a community to really significantly impact youth employment and mobility and programming in our community to meet the talent pipeline needs. So with that, I would like to introduce ourselves. I am Lopez, the Associate Superintendent at High School District 214, and I also serve as chair of the Illinois Community College Board. So I'm involved in both K-12 and higher ed policy discussions and have been focused on work-based learning issues and workforce issues for over a decade. Kathy?
And my name is Kathleen Burley. I'm the Executive Director for GCAMP, or the Golden Corridor Advanced Manufacturing Partnership. We've been around for a little over 10 years, and we act as a bridge between education and manufacturing, bringing the two together to build those pipelines, those talent and manufacturing pipelines.
All right. So as you can see from the focus of our session today is going to be on looking at talent pipeline management strategies and how those can be leveraged in communities to increase employer engagement at scale and organize in-demand industry sectors. And what we're going to show is how this has worked over the last decade, specifically in manufacturing, although we've applied this in our communities in other areas as well. So for those of you that may not be aware of talent pipeline management strategies, there are 6 components that have been developed. And we've got just a brief little video here that's about a minute long that will showcase that information.
Today, businesses are seeking to build an increasingly skilled and diverse workforce. Meanwhile, more and more learners and workers are seeking employment and career advancement. While this may seem like a simple pairing, there's a problem. Many employers are still searching for a strategic and sustainable talent pipeline. Without it, their employment outcomes so often fall short of expectations. Talent Pipeline Management, or TPM, is a tool that can help. The Tpm Framework is a collection of 6 strategies that are based on industry best practices and provide employers with a data and performance-driven approach to identifying, developing, and sourcing talent. Utilizing supply chain management principles, these 6 strategies are ROI-driven, allowing employers to take the lead, building meaningful partnerships with educators and training providers, measuring their success, and creating employment and career advancement pathways for a skilled workforce. Learn how you can become part of this growing movement. Today, visit.
All right. So I think that gives you just a little bit of overview of the strategy. And towards the end of the presentation, depending on how much time we have, I am going to specifically address one of the resources that was developed. First, just to let you know about who we are and how this might be applicable to your community. High School District 214 has approximately 12,000 students. We span 68 square miles on the northwest, in the northwest suburbs of Chicago. We have 7 high school sites, and we have developed about 40 career programs of study. We actually now have, I think, over 1,200 industry partners. We're facilitating approximately 3,000 work-based learning experiences. And in our portfolio, we have everything from micro-internship, which are short-term experiences, to full youth apprenticeships in a variety of employment areas. 92% of our graduates, though, while they're working on their career pathways, are also earning college credits. That's 92% of all graduates. So we really are doing this work at scale. So I just want to begin a little bit about where our story is, and also let you know that we'll be utilizing the chat for your questions. So we are going to leave time at the end to answer questions. If you post them throughout the presentation, we'll be able to sort of assess how much time we need to respond to everyone's questions. But I want to start with our story. So the story begins really, I was a new high school principal in Wheeling, Illinois, and this was a turnaround school. There was a lot of a lot of concerns in the community about the school not meeting its needs. It was in many respects known for gangs, drugs, and violence. We really focused on re-envisioning that school and its place in the community. And when I began that work, I had met with manufacturers from across the community. Wheeling actually had at the time probably, I think, about the third largest concentration of manufacturers in the country. It's certainly a significant employer, but we were not connecting the students in our schools with the jobs in the community. And we saw this really as an opportunity, even during the Great Recession, which it was, to re-envision these facilities. The space that you're looking at in this picture was actually a computer lab that we re-envisioned. This is a newer photo, but back in 2009 was re-envisioned as a manufacturing facility. And this was at a time when no one was investing in trades in our schools, and certainly in these communities, we weren't investing in putting together a manufacturing facility at the school. But there was a specific need by our employers in telling us that they didn't have a skilled population. I will share with you that as a result of those efforts, we had partnered closely with the village of Wheeling and their economic development leaders there, and we began to cross-promote each other. And they utilized the existence of our program to help maintain occupancy rates during that time when others were struggling. Go ahead, Kathy.
Camp came along right about 11 years ago. So right after Laz took the helm at Wheeling and started building that program, G-Camp came along, but from a different perspective. We had in one of our municipalities in Hoffman Estates, the economic development administrator went around to some of the companies in the area, some of the manufacturers in Hoffman and Elk Grove and Schaumburg, and he was asking what they could do to help keep companies there and to bring them in. And they all unanimously said, we need employees, we need companies to, we need a sustainable manufacturing workforce here. And so it was through those original manufacturers, they got together and they formed G-Camp with the municipalities together. And with that, they went to partner with the schools in the area. So what is the big deal with needing skilled employees is the fact that we have a silver tsunami going on right now in all aspects and all pathways, but in manufacturing especially, as our workforce ages out, we need to capture that knowledge that they have before they go is one thing, and we just need to keep filling that pipeline. But as we all know, manufacturing is not always seen as, the sexy, sleek pathway that it really actually is, and we're trying to change that. So that is another reason why G-Camp was so important to start promoting these careers. G-Camp works through, we kind of have a 4-pillar system. We work with government and our municipalities because, like Laz said in Wheeling, we need to keep companies staying in our communities. We need them strong and healthy in our communities. Through businesses, the manufacturers that we have, they want that workforce. They benefit with a strong workforce, highly trained, and sorry
about that.
That's okay. And education and youth go hand in hand because educators want what's best for the youth, and youth, our students, they need a valuable, well-paying, good career pathway. So what does G-Camp do? Well, we help attract new companies by working with them on that skilled workforce and retaining companies, stimulating expansion. If you look at any of the municipalities in our area, the rate, empty, I don't know what you call that rate, but occupancy rate, thank you. Occupancy rate is very low. 2 to 4%. And it just helps build the tax base and keeping employers happy, keeping students in the area, and just that wheel just turns that in our area here. So it's a common goal. All of this started when the manufacturers got together back in 2011, about 10 years ago. The first place they went is Harper College. Harper College is the center of our community. It's the community college that they've always been they've had a very robust programming. We went to Harper, they did not have a manufacturing program. And so that is where it had to start. Because obviously if we go to the District 214 and the other districts in the area, we need the support and the anchor of the community college, Harper College. And so they were up to that task, and that's where it started.
So let me interject here a second and say that I saw Kim posted in the chat. I'm not an expert on TPM, and I know that Kathy isn't. Our goal here is to illustrate the way these talent pipeline management strategies actually are illustrated in the work that's happened here over the course of the last decade to really build a powerful system of talent pipeline for our employers. And that all this work really was driven from our employer community here, first starting at one individual school and telling us, hey, you're not providing the talent we need. We have jobs and you have students that need economic mobility. And there's an opportunity there for us to connect. And so my goal today is to share the story of how this happened and how these two facets are aligned through this talent pipeline process, all right? So one of the things in this story, so in 2009, I started as a principal. We started our first manufacturing, actually 2007, I started at the principal. Took me 2 years working with the employers to get the manufacturing facility open by 2009. And then G-Camp is organized and starts moving the college in that direction. At the same time, there was something called Race to the Top. For those of you that have been around will remember that. And I was at many meetings with the individuals who actually wrote the resource that we'll be talking about today, where we were talking about career pathways. And so as a school principal, I began looking at career pathways and how this could be leveraged for these high school talent pipelines and support the work that's happening with the manufacturing community, and then use that as a model to replicate it across 40 programs of study. So career pathways, we built our work on sort of these three guiding principles that we're using in our K-12 school system that is also applicable and necessary to connect with our early college partners. So one is that we took a look at all of our courses and really cleaned house in many respects and ensured that all our courses were aligned with a future, something beyond high school. The second, that we embedded work-based learning, which is in part what we're talking about through not only problem-based learning, but industry partner engagement and career experiences. And that we had opportunities in all these pathways to earn early college credit with our community college partner or university partners and attain industry credentials in order for students to begin that transition from high school to those post-secondary choices. So this is something that should be familiar to many of you in the idea of how we design a pathway with orientation coursework, skill development coursework, and capstone coursework. But we've embedded those post-secondary partners into this experience. And so while we're building this sequence of coursework pipeline, which I will talk about later, G-Camp is also operating at the same time, trying to build interest and engagement among students in the community so they want to engage in our work and engage in our experiences. And I know, Kathy, you're going to talk about that.
Well, one of the things that we've realized recently is as much as we've gained foothold in the high schools and working with the programs is the necessity to go a little lower into our middle schools and junior high schools to promote manufacturing opportunities, to promote apprenticeships. We spend our entire lives talking to our kids about college. How many of us have talked to our 9 or 10-year-old or 11-year-old about an apprenticeship? They don't know what that is, and you can expect once they get to high school, that's such a new concept. So with that apprenticeship concept with manufacturing skills, You know, with the term STEM or STEAM, we go back and we work with some of those middle schoolers to help fill that future pipeline by getting them interested and letting them know what manufacturing is at that middle school, junior high level. 214 has an amazing next generation engineers program that they've expanded throughout the district that we help sponsor. We do career days, robotics. District 211 locally does a STEM outreach for girls. It's called GEMS, Girls Interested in Engineering, Math, and Science. And there's over 250, 300 girls each year when we do that. There's the Rube Goldberg event. So there's a lot of different areas, and we're trying to incorporate these younger students so that it helps fill, you know, our hopes are they're going to get to high school and they're going to have to open up new classes for these students. At the high school, and that's kind of the bread and butter of who we work with and what we do with our companies. We're very heavily promoting work-based learning opportunities or internships, apprenticeships after high school, pre-apprenticeships now at District 214. Just this past year, we've partnered with District 214, and we're working to bring, I believe in the fall of this year, our first handful of student apprentices in manufacturing. So that's brand new in the area. People are very excited about it. On top of that, at the high school level, they have the Robot Rumble, which is a robotics program, and all of the local schools in District 214, as well as 211 and a few other districts, participate in that, and it's very popular with the students. The high mileage vehicle competition, which is highly, the kids love that one. And that also, we've done other things as far as GCamp. We donate, we have grant opportunities. We donate products to the schools, raw materials. We've gone into classrooms. We've talked to students about career opportunities pre-pandemic, of course. We've done some online since the pandemic, and we're working to bring more virtual opportunities that even after the post-pandemic students will be able to utilize, and so will teachers.
And so I think what I want to highlight here with what Kathy's talking about, all of these things, is I want you to see that there's this symbiotic relationship between both of us. She is working with all of our manufacturing employers, and I'm meeting with them as well. But what GCamp is doing is that they are helping to open doors for me as a school leader, because they're also going to the villages, they're going to the leaders, they're also going to the communities and supporting this work. It may not seem controversial now. I will tell you, at the time a decade ago, there was some controversy about us sort of going back and reopening facilities for jobs which people thought didn't really exist anymore. And so they as they were sort of selling and talking about these employment opportunities with political leaders, with village leaders, they were also funding and supporting, if you look at this list of achievements, of specific equipment, right? Funding events. That adds credibility and allows me then as a school leader to do more. Can I go to the next one, the next slide real quick? So in this particular one, and I thought I had the, maybe I don't have it in here, the video, which I thought was so cool with WGM, but go ahead. I know you were going to talk about.
Oh, you have it on the next slide, Les. It's on the next slide.
Okay, good.
You can go ahead and go to the next slide.
Is it?
We can talk about
oh, you know what? I think it's further away, so that's fine. I'll play it in a little bit. I thought I had it on here. It's several slides further. So this is the can I ask, why do the manufacturers like sponsoring these cars? This Illinois Energy Efficient Vehicle Competition.
Well, they like to sponsor them because the kids like them, and because they can come in and see hands-on, and they can send their young engineers. A lot of them send some of their younger engineers to come work with the students. You know, what's key working with the companies and the schools and the students is the fact that we have, and we'll talk about this in a few minutes, is we have to get that symbiotic relationship. We have to build that relationship of trust so that the students are comfortable with the manufacturers as much as we need the manufacturers to buy in and understand what the students and what the schools are doing. And this is one example of a hands-on way that the two can work together.
Yeah. And so if you notice that before 2017, this did not exist. What was happening was we were building a few cars and going to Wisconsin and having to transport like 3 kids to move the vehicle and the 3 kids who built the car to Wisconsin to compete in some event there. We were very fortunate that Autobahn Joliet and was willing to host us. And what that allowed us to do is to continue to work towards going to scale. This is open to all high schools in the state of Illinois to participate in this race. So I'm very excited at its continued growth.
So GCamp sponsors the IEBC title sponsorship. We basically sponsor the racetrack. One of our sponsors is a team sponsor for Penske Race Car and Andretti Autosport. So it just so happens that it coincides that the high mileage vehicle competition is in April, and then May is the time trials. So they sponsor the winning team. And in this case we've now expanded it to 2 teams because we went from gas only, introduced 2 years ago with the electric version. So we have electric cars and we have gas powered cars. And both teams, one team from each division gets to go down and experience everything that they have down at Indy for a day. The kids love that. So one thing I wanted to also mention is during the pandemic of the past year, we've had to really switch gears and figure a way that we could still assist students with education, because we are well aware that as much as the manufacturers some have been very busy trying to, as I say, save the world, because that's who did it. Were our students and our teachers who were trying to figure out ways to keep students engaged. And one of the teachers at Rolling Meadows High School approached me, and we talked about how can we come up with something for the students. And we came up with a program called Quote to Production, and we call it Q2P. And we did this over 8 weeks for 20 or 30 minutes each week with a classroom. We had Acme Industries volunteer to work with us on this. And every week we had a different portion of this project in stages from beginning to end. It was extremely successful. The kids loved it. The teachers liked it. It spurred lots of conversation within the classroom. One of the things that's missing with manufacturing is when students go to visit a company, they only see one stage of a product. They don't get to see the whole way through. And as we went through there, they introduced careers at every step of the way: sales, marketing, engineering. Every step of the way, a new career was introduced.
All right. And so one of the things that is outlined in the talent pipeline management is really about the employers sort of defining the skills, right? And so this is one way where employers took an active role, and these manufacturers did an active role in providing a solution to the schools, really to deliver specific content and a great concept of going from beginning to end, everything from design and all of those pieces involved in getting a product to market. And then what I want to sort of represent here, this symbiotic relationship. So we're hearing from them, and the results are being translated in the classroom. So the problem solving that's happening in schools, for example, one company who is a medical manufacturer in Wheeling challenged us to redesign their biopsy needle. And so students got met with their engineers and their designers several times, got their top secret designs, and competed to redesign and make that biopsy needle less painful when it's being used. And there was an opportunity where the employer and the company learned from the students some creative ideas maybe they hadn't thought of, but a real world experience for the students. And what this means is this translates. So when you look, when they talk about supporting robot Rumble, this is what they're supporting, is that you've got students that are using plasma cutters to cut all the drive and steering parts. They're operating CNCs and manual mills and lathes to construct the components. They're assembling, testing, they're rolling, bending, tubing. They are building these things from scratch. You can Google online to look for our robot Rumble, and you'll see videos of these great robots that are sort of fighting and crashing each other. I mean, if you want to get kids excited about a future really in STEM overall, from engineering to manufacturing, and I know that they're focused on manufacturing, but I will tell you is that this expands into careers also. I mean, they hire lots of engineers, right? In a variety of areas that support sort of STEM and these manufacturers in our community. And so also when you're looking at high mileage videos, they are milling and lathing, the metalworking, designing prototyping, the plasma cut, and they're doing all of this in real world. I want to share with you quickly, it's only a 3-minute spot of WGN's story of this high mileage vehicle, because it's such a cool experience.
Illinois students went to this competition in Wisconsin last year, and it was such a success, so successful that they started it in Illinois, its own competition here in this state. So students in the area spent this school year building single passenger vehicles in their engineering and manufacturing courses. Then yesterday, they actually got to put those vehicles to the test on the track. Competition is on at the Autobahn Country Club.
This is entirely different than what we do here at Autobahn, because we're a racing club, and most of the time we're with high speed. This is entirely different for everybody here.
So what do you think of it, seeing these kids?
This is great.
Today, the track is hosting Illinois' first ever energy efficient vehicle competition for area high schools. Instead of racing for speed, these kids are racing to see whose car can get the best gas mileage.
I'm about to go on the racetrack and see how much gas mileage I can get in 2 laps.
The students built the cars themselves.
First, we had to make a frame, put this together. We got the brakes working. We hooked up an engine. Pretty much been a year-long thing.
When we bring the cars here, a lot of them will break down.
I don't know. I don't even know the car just started going. I think the chain might have fell off again.
And what's fun is seeing the kids in the pits working, welding, trying to, make these changes during the event. And that's kind of like realistic and practical problem solving.
As you can see, we went around 1 lap before it broke down, and barely anything went down. So we think that we can go around 4 laps without it running out.
Really, the idea is to get them to be creative problem solvers, innovators, project managers, et cetera, because they may not all go into the automotive industry, but we've got some serious problems to solve in our society, in industry, and lots of different businesses that they can participate in.
Students can build electric vehicles for the competition as well to see how far they can travel on a charge.
It's really fun to be able to build a car and then be able to go around on a track and drive it for that long and be like, well, I helped build this. I welded this, I designed this, and it's really cool.
I think that's really cool. I hope you guys enjoyed that. What's exciting and this sort of career pathway, because that's really where I started this section of our conversation, is the idea that we began over this last decade designing career pathways where students have these full experiences. And what you've got represented here is our manufacturing pathway that also we are able to as well as overlay this with engineering students and engineering courses. But for a student that's really interested in manufacturing, this did not exist before. So through our partnership with our local community college, Harper, which keep in mind, G-Camp is the one, and the employers went to the community college and said, hey, this is what we need and want. And they were able to embrace that, pursue some funding from the feds during that time, and be able to develop and improve their manufacturing program to help support all students. And because of that, we have this fully developed experience for students that includes industry credentials. And that's one of the other key components from the talent pipeline management process, which is really the employers defining what are the credentials and the skills. So like, for example, the Tooling and Manufacturing Association worked with us to give students a junior manufacturing certificate that is valuable within our community, that they can recognize as an entry-level certificate that the student has some basic skills. They're also delivering NIMS credentialing, right? That's something that as a high school educator, I didn't know anything about this. They brought that to me and said, this is what you need in order to have a successful programming. And so we are doing NIMS credentialing with all of our students in a variety of areas. And the idea is that a student is set up beyond high school. And that when they leave with some currency. And that currency is, I have some college credit in hand. And I've highlighted there in blue, you notice Gen Ed dual credit. At the same time, we're giving kids who are in these programs College English 101 and College Math 101. Why? Because those are the courses that are one of the greatest impediments to students being able to persist and complete to graduation. Many of these courses are offered on the campus at Harper College. Some of them are dual credit courses on our campuses. Some of them we send them there. And during the youth apprenticeship experience, students are earning money. They are with manufacturers, and they are also on that college campus while they're completing their high school degree. So it really is a seamless path into a future with kids leaving with networked employers, a path for completing a credential, either an associate's degree or industry credentials, and really having fully developed what it is that they want to make the decisions to help them with the next stages of their life. And then at the same time, what I will share is that in 2016, we passed legislation that created these endorsements, right? I'm sharing all of this with you for you to sort of get a sense of how everything's interconnected. You have industry designing and pushing the work to happen. You have education responding, both in higher ed and in high school. And now you have the state with legislation that says we're going to create endorsements that recognize the work students are doing. And in this endorsement that a student can earn on their high school transcript, we're then defining the value proposition in our communities. So what the state has said, a student earning an endorsement will have had a series of coursework. They've had to have at least 6 hours of early college credit within that instructional sequence that's career focused. They've done at least 60 cumulative hours of paid or credit supervised career development experience, meaning work-based learning. And it sort of ties all of this together and gives a value proposition back to the high schools and superintendents to deliver these endorsements for their students. And this is all obviously very new and has been in implementation stages. But all this is driven out of that original employer drive. This last video I want to show you, what this does in about 4 minutes is it basically tells you how to connect how all of these things and what the results of all of this impact has been, both in our school district, and then we'll talk about sort of more broadly how this is expanded. So I'm going to share this real quick. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation did this in their focus. A lot of the focus here is manufacturing and engineering, and you get to hear some more student voices specifically in this pathway and how what this has meant for them, this partnership.
Our students are pretty stressed out. Our students are scared about their futures. They're growing up in a world that is shifting on a daily basis.
Here in District 214, engaging with our business partners and our business leaders, we learned that the school really wasn't being relevant to what they needed to sustain the economic development of this particular community.
When I first came here, it was really a traditional high school. Then we started to really realize that these kids needed to be career ready.
The high school diploma doesn't mean what it used to be. And the reality is the cost of higher ed is out of reach for many families.
I didn't really know that much about engineering until I started in high school. The Career Pathways program definitely showed me how many different ways and avenues there are into what field I want to go into.
Career Pathways is is about ensuring that high school is relevant to students. We're hosting close to 3,000 real-world workplace learning experiences a year. Our students don't necessarily need to take a test in order to get into a specific college class. They're taking those college classes while we're here.
By my sophomore year, I was certified in 3 CNC mills. Most people don't get certified until they get their major in it. I was able to get it in a year, and that was all because my school had a shop where they had over 16 different machines.
It is important to have state-of-the-art facilities because students need to be able to see what is possible. Implementing each career pathway is a unique experience. We've partnered with companies in order to ensure that we are meeting the needs of those employers that are here.
It has to be done in partnership between school districts, community colleges, employers, community members, parents, and most especially, it has to be done in partnership with students.
I'm excited to be involved in the internship program 214. I love the opportunity to expose young people to the career in manufacturing. And in some cases, they actually like the career here and have stayed with us.
Working with industry and bringing them into the classroom has been the key to our success in this district. It has opened our eyes up to how we should be organizing and delivering our programs, what certifications, what industry standards we should be addressing. Ultimately, what we as a community, what we as a society really have to be concerned about is the success of our students.
My message to other educational leaders is to start with the question of, is my school relevant in my community? Is it relevant to each of my individual students? Public education and access to high quality schools is key to those students finding their futures, and we need them to leave our schools ready and knowing what it is their next step needs to be. And it's our responsibility to deliver that. And my appreciation to the Chamber of Commerce for funding that. And so let's talk about the impact and sort of the results of this relationship between employers and educators, with them driving really the skills and opportunities. So one is certainly recognition, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce filming that, coming out and investing and highlighting the work that's happening in the community is certainly one form, but it also has translated into significant investment. So, and Kathy, jump in whenever you want on any of these. So this one is HydroForce is a local company. They wanted to see robotics be a focus. They donated $150,000 so that Wheeling High School could be outfitted with robotics workstations, which you see there in the back of the imagery there. They funded putting that together.
HydroForce is also very well known in both of the districts in the area for taking on a lot of students for summer internships and doing not only just, the thing about internships is we don't allow them to bring them in and just sweep the floors. They really have to be doing something and learning something. And at HydroForce alone, I know they showed me an entire robotic cell that they brought in 3 young women from one of the local high schools, I believe Palatine High School, and they designed and built an entire robotic cell. So, these internships are very impactful, and having partners like HydroForce are very important, not only monetarily, but in all aspects.
Right, but they're donating into their talent pipeline. Here's the other result is because there's attention and you see things like the Chamber of Commerce highlighting, we had an alumni who was very successful, who came back and gave $1 million to the school just to build the innovation lab and to expand opportunities. And so now they have welding stations, both virtual, they have robotics, and they've outfitted and expanded significantly their manufacturing facilities.
And he did that. He donated that $1 million because of the impact of his teacher, his high school teacher, who was, so that was a great story.
And then the other piece is, and I'm very appreciative to the mayor, Craig there at Elk Grove Village, that they have made a 5-year commitment, $100,000 a year. Specifically, they view it as an investment in workforce development initiatives because of the concentration of manufacturers in Elk Grove Village. And so they've invested it in the high school. Now, what I will tell you is that the high school wasn't necessarily at the front of my line wanting to expand and develop these programs. But again, and maybe Kathy can speak more to it. Why don't you speak to how you guys actually did a lot of work in leveraging and making this happen?
Well, Elk Grove is one of the 3 municipalities that does partially sponsor us, and we do meet with them quite often. And Elk Grove Village is known to be the top, if not one of the top manufacturing areas in the country. They're manufacturing saturated. And a few of our GCamp members had said we should have the best program anywhere. And they were not happy with, they wanted a bigger, better, more robust program. And they pushed us, and we spoke to the municipality, for a few years. And, of course, they were in agreement, but they weren't sure how to go about doing that. It's not often that a municipality gets that involved in the school system. And then they started working with the schools, and this happened. So,
but I would also say is that you guys applied a lot of pressure to that school leader, to that principal, and meeting with them and helping him understand the impact and value. I mean, you did. You had more conversations with him than I even had, and there's a lot of leverage there of an employer going to a school principal and saying, "Hey, we want you to meet the needs of our local employer community," right? So I think that was very powerful. Certainly for me, like I was already bought in, but I also have to get the rest of the principals to buy in. And then the other piece, GCamp, you guys, you and TMA, who's one of your partners, you're at our schools all the time, right? So maybe you can speak to this event. This is an example, and you do this all the time.
So we came up with a program a few years ago. We call it manufacturing breakfasts, and it came to light that sometimes there's reverse perception problems. Okay, so just as much as we want to talk to students and their parents, that we work with them on building that trust that manufacturing is this great pathway, you have companies who think that, well, what are they doing at the high schools? They can't possibly know. They can't possibly be learning what I need. Why would I bring a student in? I will just have them sweep the floor or something. Or that lack of trust with student abilities and soft skills and their knowledge and their want for manufacturing. And so we decided to do a manufacturing breakfast and flipped it. Instead of having students come to a company, we had the companies come to the students. And where a couple of even our board members, we're going to get maybe 3 or 4 companies. We had standing room only. Our first one at Rolling Meadows High School a few years back was standing room only. And we've done a few since. We did one just before, as the pandemic was rolling around, at Wheeling High School that was very successful as well, and Schaumburg High School. So bringing in companies, again, with that whole bridge concept, you have to bring them together. You have, just as much as you need students and parents to buy into manufacturing, you need companies to buy into what you're doing at your schools. They need to see it. They need to know it, whether it's through breakfasts or visits or advisory councils, because the students always wow. They always wow these people.
So again, you'll notice I included this because these are actually, both of these are publications and articles. And so you can see how this sort of supports each other. So because they did that, the local newspaper does a story about it. There's more support. The community reads it. They see it. It's positive. You've got employers there. The community then believes and supports what the school's trying to do more so. And each one sort of has this domino effect in supporting the other. And that's what allows more money and resources and opportunities and attention to come, right? But it all started with one, which I'll go back to in just a moment. So this is like our latest facility at John Hersey High School in Arlington Heights. I want you to know there is no way this high school would have ever thought about a career pathway in manufacturing and having this type of equipment and welding. This is going to be our first high school in our community that's going to provide welding. We've had welding because they're doing welding as applied to building their cars and other things, but actually trying to deliver some welding certification and welding opportunities to students that are much more developed as standalone programs and experiences. But I mean, this is a great facility, right? This is beautiful. But this didn't just happen. This has been 10 years after the first one started, right? And what I want to sort of show is this progression here. I mean, we've grown from 300 students to 1,600 students in this pathway, in this full STEM, really engineering, manufacturing, involved in all these programs. But it started with one school, one program at Wheeling in 2009. And then G-Camp came on board. And the truth is, it's the employers that came to me and asked me to do this when I started as a principal, and I went out and met with them. And they organized themselves, and then really they've been able to drive this expansion where now it's across our entire district as recently as now, this school year, really, which we're very proud and excited about. And maybe the impact from your perspective from G-Camp.
Well, the impact from our perspective has been, it's tremendous. The more we work with District 214 and they bring on new schools, makes it much easier for us, you know, to be able to go to companies and say, work with us, work with the students, work with the schools to help build your workforce. The other part, and I kind of want to put this in there somewhere, and it's going back a little bit to the high mileage vehicle cars, because it was right around then that I realized how expansive manufacturing is. And it goes beyond just your manufacturing classes. And I talk to career counselors all the time about your auto students with a high mileage vehicle competition. We were noting that there were a lot of the manufacturing students, there were a lot of auto students, and auto students are very good tactile, working with their hands. And we're finding a lot more of those students that are finding interest in manufacturing. The same thing with your computer programmers. Manufacturing is as it becomes so much more technologically advanced every year that we continue to make things. Automation, robotics. People are concerned that they will take jobs, but they will actually make jobs. They'll make higher skilled jobs. So those engineers, those computer programmers, all of those values all come into manufacturing. There's always going to be hands-on manufacturing, but there's an incredible growth in tech. So, so developing, being able to expand that to more students, and it increases the students that might be involved in manufacturing in STEM and STEAM programs, all the way back into a lot of, we're doing a lot of these STEM and STEAM programs at the middle schools and talking about manufacturing. Manufacturing it's a huge pathway. There are many pathways, and there are a lot of career pathways that are intermingled in manufacturing, with marketing and sales and all kinds of different pathways. So I don't want to get off track here or anything, but we work with internships, we work with apprenticeships, all employment models. We work with the schools, we work with the companies, and whether or not there's a G-Camp in the area or an organization like that, it's making sure that there's a connection between you and your community, your industry, because that's where you're going to get the help. When they see that you're interested in working with them, they will be interested in working back in many cases.
There's a specific need to be able to drive that talent, that pipeline. And so
Yes.
These are all your partners, at least some of them.
That's some of them.
Yeah. And then also the other piece, particularly in TPM, is really about sort of driving the curriculum and the skills and the credentialing. And that really has been of value, because as an educator, that's not my area of expertise. I need the employers to tell me what are the ones that matter and have the greatest value to you. And keep posting those questions. I see there's one there in the chat. We'll get to. I did want to quickly just make a reference. I'm not going to go through this because I want to focus on questions right now. And that is, this is a talent pipeline management resource guide for really educators and employers to be able to bridge that communication between them. And it demonstrates how it can be used as a framework to improve the employer-led partnership with CTE system leaders and practitioners. I encourage you to take a look at that. So we're going to go to the questions. If we've got time, I can reference a little bit more of the compendium. But the first question I think is, we'll start with Jeff's, and then I do want to sort of go back to S. Brown there, who posted it. But Kathy, this is for you. When you approach the businesses, who is your first contact? The HR president, vice president? Like, who are the people that, and I can speak too, but from your perspective.
Sure. A lot of times it depends on where you're making that contact. If you're at a workforce event, then it's whoever is present there. You can usually tell early on if you're approached who the interested person is. A lot of times it is the HR. It could be an engineer, or it could be a manufacturing manager, supervisor. You start with who the interested party is, and they kind of direct you to who they need to get approval from. HR is definitely one of those, but it's not always the president or the VP. Sometimes it can be if it's a small or mid-sized company, but it really just depends.
You know, what's interesting is there's three facets to this particular resource: the CT orientation to the employers, employer orientation to the CT community, and then improving engagement. But one of the key points they say here is in their takeaway is that there's rarely a single point of contact inside a company. That usually there are going to be multiple individuals depending on what are the area specific focus for and even site locations, right?
When you find an interested person, they'll direct you to who to go to next.
Right.
They'll do the introductions. They'll bring you to the next person if they're not the one.
So we have a question here from S. Brown's talking about, should we focus on letting them know about all of the possibilities for growth in these industries, or do we maintain focus on making sure they understand what's waiting for them at the entrance level? And this is from sort of WIOA administrator perspective. And I don't know that I'm the ideal person to answer that. I'll do my best, but if somebody else wants to help respond to that, I would encourage them. I will tell you that what we want to do in our community is to ensure that we help students not get jobs, but enter careers, if that makes sense. That when they're graduating, at least from high school, that they're graduating into a career path, and that their interest and their is aligned, and we're setting them up for sort of that economic mobility. So if a student's interested in healthcare, we don't get them the CNA certificate because we expect them to just be a CNA. We get them the CNA certificate because that is an entry into the healthcare industry that could help them begin that journey. In manufacturing, we don't get them the NIMS credentialing because that is the end all and be all and all they need. We do that because it's something that we can deliver at this point to help them get in the door and to gauge their level of interest and engagement, so that an employer is more willing to invest and to recruit that individual because they've done something, right? They're showing that they've got some skill and they have interest, and that this is the space that they want to be in. So it's sort of setting them up for that future mobility, if that makes sense. But if somebody else wants to answer that question, certainly better than I do from an administrative perspective. The other question, go ahead.
I'm also going to jump in really quick. I just want to mention also that one of the things that I think maybe sets GCamp apart a little bit from some other organizations, I don't know who, but is that we're very careful with placement of students and making sure that it is something that they're interested in and that it's going to give them growth. So even if they're graduating high school and we're looking to help get them into an apprenticeship or into an employment situation, making sure that, you know, we make sure that a lot of our companies, that there's some sort of training beyond that. So the thing about, even for students who graduate high school and go into a job and a career, that's not the end of their learning. Whether they go to the community college, which we strongly suggest doing additional education, but there's always an education portion of that to continue their career growth post high school.
You know, I forgot to mention that I should have when I talked about this particular trajectory, was that one of the natural progressions was our adult ed program, and that we now have, utilizing these same facilities we built for high school students, we are now doing adult ed there and helping our students that are our language learners. They are in those manufacturing facilities, earning NIMS credentialing. We had our first cohort during 1920. Unfortunately, COVID did impact this, but we had 40 students in that first cohort, and our hope is to continue to expand that. I want you to know we also have healthcare facilities. We have all sorts of places where we're trying to align this work with our adult ed community. We have partnerships with Eastern Illinois University to try to, for those individuals that have degrees in other country, that we can try to help them earn a degree and translate that degree for that's valid here in the United States, right? So that adult ed component is one that's been a natural progression. So I did want to make reference to that because I think I forgot to do that previously. Let me see here. There is a question from Cindy there about disability specific programs. What I will tell you, I didn't talk about it here because of timing, is we do have tiered levels of work-based learning that starts with students that stay within our system till they're 22 years of age, where there are local in-school experiences that are work-based learning experiences. They move into experiences that are, you know, vocationally supported with job coaches at sites, and then students also move into independent workplace learning experiences. And so it is a progression to be able to support and find students. We have been utilizing the approaches we have with career pathways. We have placed students that have had significant disabilities with employment opportunities by the time they left us at age 22, which we've been very proud of, and certainly transitioned them to some of the adult program support programs in our community. I'm trying to see here if there's another question, Diane, if you see anything that I'm missing. And I know that we're close to time. I think I'm not seeing other questions. I think if maybe we have a wrap up, we'll wrap it up here with any final thoughts. Kathy, I would say, do you have any advice for communities that maybe to try to get their employers to come together and come to some agreement? You'll notice that TPM focuses on critical jobs, meaning where do they need a talent pipeline, and how can they come together to sort of create this engine for response from education?
Well, I think they need to start by bringing the community, bringing industry together at the school and showing them if they have programs, what programs they have. That's probably the first thing, because the companies need to see it. And rather than going individually out to a few companies, let them know and try to get some PR out there about wanting to grow this program, this pathway, and needing and wanting partners. An advisory council would be a great idea, bringing industry in to advise you on any changes that you may need to have. You know, when you get buy-in from industry, they're going to partner with you.
Well, thank you so much, Kathy, and thank you so much, all of you, for being here. I know that we're at time. This is our stop point within a minute. I will stay on if somebody wants to chat some more, but thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much to the organizers, Diane. I don't know if you had any final housekeeping items.
I want to thank everyone for attending, and we are going to have some lunch with friends if you want to pop over to those Zoom meetings. If not, you have an hour to enjoy lunch, check email, and just a little bit of time and space for your daily duties. And then we'll see you back at the afternoon sessions starting this afternoon.
My apologies, Amy. I should refer to you as Amy. So thank you so much.
You're fine.
Session. Take care.
Thank you also very much.